Good morning, everybody, and welcome to IGTV. And with us this morning with the InfraGard Editorial is William H. Murray, and Bill is going to be talking about the case of Patco versus Ocean Bank. Go ahead, Bill, take it away.
The closely watched case of Patco versus Ocean Bank is working its way through the courts. The most recent event in the case was the recommendation of a court-appointed magistrate or master. If, as seems most likely, the court adopts the recommendation, it will be very good news for the banks and very bad news for small business. However the case comes out, there are important lessons in the case for security professionals. Patco was the victim of a Trojan horse attack using software called Zeus. The attack enabled the perpetrators to compromise Patco's banking credentials and replay them to withdraw all of Patco's cash deposits of about $300,000 and then draw down further on Patco's line of credit with the bank for another $250,000. The fundamental common law principle is that banks are responsible for ensuring that transactions are properly authorized and that they must bear the cost of fraud. As individuals, we rely upon this rule all the time. So far, at least for consumer transactions, the banks have honored this obligation, both for deposit and credit card transactions. However, over time, this principle has been eroded and limited by legislation, regulation, and contract, designed to encourage responsible behavior on the part of bank customers, particularly small business customers. Patco argues that it did not authorize the transactions in question and that the bank should reimburse them for the losses. The bank argues that Patco's credentials were used for the transactions and that, therefore, under the agreement with the bank, Patco is liable for the transfers. Patco argues that the security mechanism offered to it by Ocean Bank to protect those credentials was inadequate for the application and the environment. It seems clear both technically and from the events in the case that the mechanism failed. That's not in dispute. Patco argues that stronger, if slightly more expensive mechanisms are available, that they would have protected Patco, and the Ocean Bank should have used them. However, the magistrate finds that the mechanism chosen by the bank, that is, user ID and password, with challenge response based on 3 shared secrets, complies with regulation, is widely used, and was agreed to under contract by Patco. The magistrate finds that as a matter of law, banks are not required to provide the best mechanism, only an adequate one. The regulation in question requires two-factor authentication. While this includes token-based or out-of-band authentication, which clearly resists the replay of customers' credentials, it also includes weaker mechanisms such as challenge response based on a set of shared secrets. Note that challenge response does provide some resistance to replay, at least until all the shared secrets have been compromised. The findings suggest that the bank increased the likelihood that all these transactions would be compromised by lowering the threshold for invoking them to $1. Transactions over $1, essentially all transactions, were going to expose at least one of the secrets. After 4 or 5, all the secrets have been exposed. Moreover, a decision that turns on Patco's agreement to the mechanism assumes that it, or any bank customer, is in a position to judge whether or not the offering is secure for his purposes. I would assert that that is unlikely, that it is far more likely that Patco simply relied upon the bank. There's nothing in the report to suggest whether or not in choosing the method, Ocean Bank contemplated a keylogger attack such as was used here. Again, it is far more likely that as Patco relied upon the bank relied upon its service provider. As in most disputes, in this case, there is plenty of blame to go around. The bank chose a weak mechanism, then relying upon intuition rather than knowledge, weakened it further by lowering the threshold. Patco did use a Zeus contaminated machine. While the bank clearly wants its customers to resist contamination, it should have assumed that across all of its customers, at least some would be compromised. Bad cases make bad law. I hope that this case will be settled, as have most similar cases up to this point, rather than appealed, so that it does not establish an anti-customer precedent. The common law principle is well-founded, and we have an interest in preserving it. An update to the Federal Financial Institution Examination Council authentication guidance is expected shortly. Leaks about that guidance suggest that while the guidance will encourage improvements, banks will continue to enjoy wide latitude, including the continued use of challenge response. Rather than looking to the FFIEC for guidance on how to improve their security, most banks seem determined to hope that whatever they are doing now will continue to be permitted under the new guidance. We should not be surprised that banks want to transfer to the customer as much of the responsibility for secure online banking as possible. Neither should we be surprised that they prefer regulations and standards that reserve to them the greatest possible flexibility and choice. The banks, on the other hand, should be surprised that customers will use them and their services only to the extent that they believe they are safe when they do so. As security professionals, we should be advising our small business clients to, 1, resist Trojan horse attacks by using a dedicated and locked-down machine for banking. 2, resist replay attacks by preferring banks that offer either token-based or out-of-band authentication. And 3, use online banking to their own advantage by reconciling their accounts and activity daily. We should be advising our banking clients that they can improve both their competitive and their security postures by employing token-based or out-of-band authentication. In a world in which all adults and many children carry mobile computing devices, the convenience of these mechanisms is improving and the cost is falling. Now, neither Patco nor Ocean Bank were well served by the security profession. We must do much better if we want to be called security professionals and get paid the big bucks. See you next week.
Thanks, Bill.